All right, everybody. Hope you're having a great Sunday, a great weekend. Big slate of football yesterday. Look, there's a ton of storylines. I'm not going to sit here and take a ton of time with the intro. David Cohn, Blaine Crane, y'all know what's up. Crane and Company live every weekday morning, 7:30 to 9 Eastern. Do me one favor before we get into this, because we're going to be taking your questions, your comments, your happiness, your sadness, the tragedies, the triumphs, and everything in between. Hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the page. Got a great NFL preview. Going to talk some fantasy. Ben Davies is going to hop in here so we can troll him about talking a bunch of trash, me and Michael Knowles, GM, and then falling off a little bit of a cliff. He's pulling an Ed Orgeron right in front of our eyes. But the chat seems hot. Let's go ahead and get this thing started, boys. Y'all want a little preemptive comment before we go, or do you want to just jump in here? Blaine,
Hit me with some preemptiveness.
Brian Harsin has to be fired.
Look, that's a great place to start. How about we start there? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go SEC, then we're going to go ACC, then we're going to go Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12. Then we'll get to the NFL. And like I said, taking all your guys' comments. And y'all know it's not our job to tell you what you want to hear. It's what we think and what we think you need to hear. We're all a fan of somebody, but we need to sit down. Sometimes you got to play a game, and let's look each other in the eyes and be honest. And that's what we're going to do here. So let's start with Auburn. I put out a little video last night on social media. If you want to check it out on Twitter, you've got to pull the plug on Brian Harsin now. You had another game, and it's multiple reasons. It's not just one reason. Okay, number one, the head coach is responsible for everything. I had somebody say, "Oh, well, he can't help that they threw interceptions and made this mistake and made that mistake." Well, that's an amazing gig. So you just tell me that the head coach is not responsible for the way the players play on the field. Please don't ever say anything like that again to other people in public. You can say it to yourself, but it makes you look like an idiot. The head coach is responsible for everything, for the players that you bring in, for the game plan, for the functioning of everything around the program. That's why they make the money they do. This season and this game was lost during the offseason when you didn't go get guys on the offensive line that could help you. And I thought Auburn's offensive line played okay last night. They struggled. Jarquez Hunter and Tank had to make some great moves at the line of scrimmage to be able to create distance. But you don't bring in any offensive lineman that can help you. From a receiving standpoint, and I know Robbie Ashford threw for 337. LSU busted 4 coverages in the first half. I couldn't believe that. Looked like Ed Orgeron, old LSU, when it was going off a cliff, the way that they were blowing coverages. In man, in zone, all type of stuff. Robbie Ashford, I think, played the game of his life last night. I really think he did. You scored 17 points in the first half. But what have we said on this show multiple times? Where does Brian Harsin and Auburn's staff struggle? They can't make adjustments. You know how many points Auburn scored in the second half last night at home? 0 with the game on the line. You look at coaching decisions. You go for it on 4th and 10 from your own 50, down 4 to pin him back. Jaden Daniels threw for 80 yards last night. LSU was struggling to move the ball. And you go for it on 4th and 10, then you give LSU a chance, or excuse me, Auburn was up, I believe, and then you go for it and give LSU a chance to go down and score. The coaching decisions are one thing. The personnel's bad. The adjustments are bad. I don't think they know what they're looking at. I don't know what they go in there at halftime and say, because there are no adjustments, guys. And at this point, Auburn has to get rid of Brian Hart. He can't do it. He can't do it. It's like I said last night. All lions aren't built the same in the jungle. We've seen it. I applaud him for trying. You can't get the players. You can't be a bad in-game coach and a bad recruiter.
That's the thing.
Now, that it'll never work. That's like trying to be a cross-country player and being fat and blind. Like, you can't. It doesn't work like that. It's just the truth. At this point, Auburn needs to get rid of Brian Harsin, name an interim, name Etheridge the interim, and then you move on and you go get an AD, because no head coach worth his salt is going to come to Auburn not being hired by the athletic director. That's protection. It's a protection racket, like the mob. So that's the way I see it. I hate to be mean, but I really don't. It's the truth. You see the same movie over and over and over and over and over again. He can't do it. And now you're what, 3-2, and you got to go to the back half of this schedule. And I know Georgia's not playing great. They're going to beat you to death. You got to go to Ole Miss, to Mississippi State. I mean, at this point, you might as well just rip the Band-Aid off to me. It's a bunch of different things, Blaine.
You know, I feel like we get on here every Sunday and we talk about this as someone was getting to the point where we're just beating a dead horse. I feel like Auburn played the best game they could have played possibly yesterday. The fact that Auburn scored 17 points in the first half is beyond amazing against me versus the LSU defense that was coming in looking pretty good. After that Florida State game, you think LSU on both sides of the ball kind of got things sewed up. But Jalen Daniels goes back again. Doesn't look like he could go through one read without taking off. He's always escaping inside the pocket. But, I mean, you look at this Auburn team, and what did they do well? Let's do what they did well. I feel like the D-line did a great job of knowing who's the quarterback and how to pass rush. Yeah. They really didn't get upfield too much, kind of stayed in their gaps, hung there, made Jalen Daniels escape the pockets to where they could at least get the tackle and did a good job there. But it goes back to this. What can you control as the head coach? You control recruiting, personnel, and in-game coaching. You got beat by a kid that you could have got from the portal. Robbie Ashford threw for 300 yards. That'll probably never happen again. Yeah, but it's only getting – the biggest thing to me was Brandon Council moving to center. Right, that helped Auburn's offensive line a lot. Center tackle, most important pieces. It helped them with Tank, Jarquez. They had to break tackles, but it looks somewhat cleaner. But it's not going to get better from here, guys. I'm sick of talking about it. You're going to Georgia next week, and you're going to get beat. Then I think you got Mississippi State. You're going to get beat. I agree with y'all. Just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Auburn needs to move on. It's not getting any better. It's only getting worse. So go ahead and rip it off, and let's make the change. Make the change.
Yeah, Jake, you made an important point. A collegiate head coach has two responsibilities: the on-field game planning, and then also the recruiting of players to come to your school in a way that an NFL coach a lot of times can say, hey, I'm not responsible for getting the guys here. I'm only responsible for the game planning. It's very difficult to have success if you only do one of those two. Very difficult. It's impossible to have success if you go 0 for 2 in a way that I know we're going to get to Texas A&M, but Jimbo Fisher, with the struggles that he's had on the field, can at least point and say, hey, I had the #1 recruiting class last year. Mm-hmm. Hey, I went and sniped an LSU quarterback to come here. Hey, I've stacked a couple top 5 classes on each other, and that's bought him some time because I do think we live in an era where we're too quick to pull the trigger on a lot of these head coaches, especially when you've had a couple not work out in the past and the buyout money is starting to add up. We're quick to pull the trigger on guys, but you cannot go 0 for 2 with not being able to make adjustments after halftime, which I think is the most telling thing in terms of a coaching staff is what do you do after halftime? They haven't had success there. And then 2, you haven't been able to get the guys in, which a year and a half there, 2 seasons now, especially with the transfer portal the way it is enough time when you see other universities around the country being able to do that.
Yeah, and Sean D says, you do got to give LSU's defense some credit there in the second half. And yes, and if this was a one-off thing, Sean, then yes, I would be getting on here and giving LSU massive amounts of credit for shutting down Auburn in the second half. Auburn hasn't scored more than 6 points in the second half against a Power 5 team, I believe, since Harson's been in Auburn. So this is a pattern for Auburn. Not that LSU didn't make good adjustments, but let's not act like this isn't the same movie over and over and over again. They've done what basically every other team. Look at Missouri last week. Auburn scored 14 quick points. Once the script ended, they couldn't adjust. They couldn't do it. It's just the reality of it. We had a question, I think, from Holy Sal that said, can they afford to do it right now? Look, you're going to have to give them the buyout anyway. It's not like the Scott Frost situation where you got to wait till October 2nd, and then the buyout gets cut in half, and you don't have to play or pay the extra $7.5 million. You're going to have to pay him the buyout regardless. My thing is you need to go ahead and get him out of the way because imagine this situation. You're trying to hire an AD, right? You go hire an AD that already has a lame duck coach there. That relationship's just going to cause problems. You need to get rid of Brian Harsin. You need to name somebody the interim, and then you need to bring in the athletic director, and you guys go get it. And people say, oh, why did they hire Brian Harsin? He was the 4th choice. Auburn went to the club expecting to go home with a 9 and ended up going home with a 4 because that was the only one that would get in the car with them. A little creepy in the club, a little older than everybody else, kind of weirding everybody out. So, again, we've talked about the candidates. We're going to talk about that this week. But Auburn, at some point, you got to make a change. I do want to tell LSU it's a nice win on the road. I don't care how bad the coaching staff is at Auburn. Whenever you can go into a place like Jordan-Hare, come back from 3 scores down.
Yep.
I got to give you credit. He said, Travis Elroy, can you justify firing on a 3-2 record, or do you need to wait until the record gets worse? I think, Travis, we already know kind of what it is. Like like Cone said, that was a great point. If recruiting was going great, I think Auburn's 12, 13 in the SEC in recruiting, which is absolutely disgusting. If recruiting was going well, if he did a good job of adjusting in the game, and they were just losing games because they had a bunch of young talent that wasn't old enough yet to win these games or understand how to win these games, that's one thing. Auburn is bad in every area. They're bad in recruiting. They're bad on the field. They're bad scheming up and adjusting. The game plan was good. The script was good. But let's not act like Robbie Ashford didn't run, like it was a bunch of truly run plays that Auburn hit for touchdowns. The first touchdown that they hit, Robbie Ashford ran around. It was a broken down play, and LSU lost the Auburn receiver in coverage because they got their eyes on the quarterback. They thought Ashford was going to run. So that play wasn't drawn up beautifully to work. He went through one read. It wasn't there. He escaped through the pocket, and it was a broken down play. So I think all the variables have added up, and you got to let him go. But
I'm glad Travis asked that question, because that's what I asked you guys this week. I said, what if Auburn figures out a way to beat LSU at home? He's 4-1. You can't fire the guy. I don't care that they almost lost to Missouri, right? I don't care how much they've struggled. But Jake, even at the beginning of the season, you said time and time again, Auburn's going to figure out a way to start 5-0, beat Penn State at home, find a way against LSU. And then the back half of that schedule is so brutal that combined with the lack of success in the portal and in recruiting is what will make Brian Harsin have to win that 7th game or maybe that 8th game in a bowl game to be able to keep his job. Well, even now through the first 5, it's 3-2, and it really gets ugly now.
Oh, you're cooked. You're cooked now. I mean, it was basically like you have to start 5-0 or 4-1 to be able to have a chance. Now that it's 3-2, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think Tua's super legit concussion protocol, that's an interesting handle there, says with Missouri's performance, is Auburn the worst team in the SEC? Outside of Vanderbilt, I think Auburn's the worst team. I think Auburn's the worst. I know you beat Missouri at home. I know, but overall, if you played 10 times in a neutral site, I think Missouri wins 6 of those.
I'm trying to find. I had them winning 2 SEC games. I'm looking at their schedule right now. I'm trying to find that second win.
Go through it, then we'll move on.
You go to Georgia next weekend. You go to Ole Miss the weekend after. You got Arkansas at home. Then you go to Mississippi State. You got A&M at home, Western Kentucky at home. Then you go to Bama. So that second win I can't find.
Look, Arkansas as beat up as they are. Could you somehow possibly find a way? I think they're going to struggle to do that.
They'll find one of them.
Western Kentucky's not a bad team either. Like, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, they're not a bad team. They can come in here and put up points. But let's move on. Alabama and Arkansas, guys. Obviously, Bryce Young going down. I thought Jalen Milroe, a guy that we talked about a little bit in the offseason, came in and did a really good job running the offense when Arkansas had put game pressure back on Alabama. But let's talk about Arkansas first. People asked me about Oklahoma's defense yesterday, and they talked about Arkansas. What do those two defenses have in common? Well, they're not super deep, especially Arkansas. But from a speed standpoint, they do not have the speed that they need. Look, Max Duggan from TCU is fast, but Oklahoma made him look like Usain Bolt yesterday. He's not that fast. Jahmyr Gibbs, really good player, but it was like every hole that opened up for Bama, there was not a safety. Or if there was one missed tackle, Arkansas could not catch anyone. And this game is won by big guys that run very, very fast. And if you're going to play the game of, well, one guy misses a tackle and he goes for 75 yards, how many other teams that have legitimate defenses do you see that happen? You'll see a guy break one, maybe take off for 20, something like that. But you don't see guys hitting home runs regularly. You don't see crossing routes that nobody can catch the guy once he gets one step on him. At the end of the day, this game, like I said, is won by speed and physicality and size. It's physics. And Arkansas defensively looked very slow yesterday. If Alabama got to the second level, they were gone. In the passing game, Blaine, Bama's players were legitimately running by safeties. They were just running by him. Yeah. It wasn't like it was, he's got 10 seconds back there, or, oh, boy, did a double move and somebody fell down. They were running straight by him. This was, hey, I'm faster than you. I'm going to run by you, and Bryce is going to throw it to me. Now, I will say, first half, I know Alabama scored a lot of points, but in that game yesterday, they dropped a lot of passes. Alabama dropped a lot of passes that hit him in the hands, like LSU dropped a lot of passes in the game yesterday, especially in the first half. Arkansas starts out 0-2 in the SEC. They were a team that I thought had a chance to be the third best team in the SEC. There's a long way to go, but with the attrition, I love Rocket Sanders. I love what they have, but Arkansas's defense yesterday and playing man, I would have got it. They stayed in man way too long. I mean, hell no. You're playing cover one. There was a time where Arkansas was playing cover one, man free, right? Where everybody is manned up except the one safety that's in the sky. On that really long pass they hit in the first half, the safety that was in the sky literally ran down. So it was almost zero coverage. Arkansas does not have the cats in the back end to play zero coverage. You are flirting with death. And while Alabama has had some problems at receiver, it's not like they have slow guys. It's not like they're bad football players. I was kind of surprised at how long Arkansas stayed in man, but you got to tip your cap to Alabama and Jalen Milroe and making those adjustments, not only after halftime, but going into the fourth quarter that allowed you to pull away and win that game.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas's inability to sell out and stop the run when you have the number 2 team in the country at your place on the ropes with a backup quarterback in, I was really surprised. Like, if I'm the head coach of that in that situation and you have Nick Saban and the number 2 team and you got it to within 5, I'm selling out on the run. I'm bringing safeties down. I'm bringing corners. I'd rather make Jalen Milroe throw to a wide open receiver and say, you're going to have to beat us that way because now we smell blood. And now we're going to stop you. 3 runs of over 70 yards there in that fourth quarter to put that thing away. And you want to talk about being able to go out and have success in the transfer portal and why it matters. Jahmyr Gibbs came from Georgia Tech, 2 runs of over 70 yards to put that game away. So I was really shocked at Arkansas. It came down to third down conversions too. I think Alabama was 70% at one point when Arkansas was maybe 1 for 9. I was surprised to see that on both sides of the football from Arkansas, but hats off to Alabama for figuring out a way late without your Heisman Trophy winner on the field to get the job done and go back to Tuscaloosa, because now things get interesting. Texas A&M comes to town. This is the game we circled on the calendar all off season with the Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban feud going on. And now we don't know the status of Bryce Young. We're going to find out a lot more next weekend.
Yeah, Blaine, that's the biggest question. Talking about third down, I mean, they converted more than the Book of Mormon at some point, until Arkansas went on a little bit of that run. But Bryce's shoulder, he was able to come back out of the tent. I did that show with him last year. Bryce is a really good guy. His dad, Craig's a really good guy. Regardless of who you root for, you want the best players out there playing. He's a joy to watch. And I think it said a lot about him. And we'll see. They say shoulder sprain. They're not really going to tell us 100% exactly what's going on. But I think you saw the type person that Bryce Young was coming out in that second half. I thought he was going to run out the field. I thought he was going to play the third quarter. And he's over there. He's hyping up the guys. Yeah, he can't play. He's hurt. You still kind of really don't know. But he's the first one over there in the huddle telling everybody what's going on. That's leadership. That's true leadership, because it wasn't about him. He wasn't doing that about him. He was doing that to calm Jalen down, let everybody else know, hey, we're fine. I'm fine. Y'all go do your thing. And I think that spoke to the type of man that Bryce Young is and the type of son that Craig Young has raised. And really it shows you where Alabama's program is from a cultural standpoint. When you mix the best players with a great culture like that, with leadership like that, when it's not going good, that's when you find out who really your friends are and who the ones that are going to stand up, Blaine.
Well, that's why you see Bama show up in big moments, because it's trust. It's trust from the players to the coaches, hell, to the equipment guys, to the lunch ladies. They're all in, and you see that late. But I do want to commend this Sam Pittman coach team. I mean, you're down 28-7 at halftime, right? And I know Bryce went out and it's a whole different battle, but you bought back. You fought back, and that's just a belief that Sam Pittman has installed in the program at Arkansas. And, Arkansas, you give up 300 yards rushing. It's kind of pick your poison. The one thing I'll say about Jalen Milroe that I was impressed with is both his big plays in the second half were on third down.
Yeah.
Right? Third and 10 plus. That 70-yard run was on 3rd and 10 plus. That pass was 3rd and 15. And to bring a freshman in there like that, and still a big moment. I mean, you're on the road. I don't care if it's 28-7 or not. But the kid came in, played good, no turnovers. And, Arkansas, you fought. But Arkansas's beat up right now, guys, and you can really see it. You can see it on the field. And I don't know what
you see the back end.
Defense coordinator standpoint with Bryce Young in the game, it's really pick your poison. Either you're going to stop the run and get tore up by him, or bring the gas and get tore up by him. So I know they lost, but I mean, if you're Sam Pittman, you should be hella proud to be the coach of the Arkansas, right?
Definitely. Carson Everett with a $5 donation said, "Does OU get exposed, or is TCU that good? Love the show. Appreciate you, Carson. We're going to get to that in our Big 12 segment. Let's go ahead, guys, and let's move on to A&M Mississippi State. This is a game I liked Mississippi State in. Took a -2.5 yesterday. I do want to say the fact that Arkansas, and I ended up going 4-2 in my 6-pick slate yesterday, but the fact that Arkansas couldn't cover the plus 21 that I got on the alternate line at home. I don't care how beat up you are. You made it a 5-point game in the second half, and you're not able to cover that. That's pretty sad at home. I know the fans are let down. But Mississippi State, they're a team after about the first 2 weeks. I said with my SEC predictions, which I feel good about basically all of them right now, except Mississippi State. Mississippi State, to me, could possibly here 2 or 3 weeks down the road make the case to be the third best team in the SEC. I know they lost at LSU. You look at the drop passes, you look at the drop punt. But Mississippi State, especially the way they're running the ball right now, we talk about coaches evolving. Looking at the evolution of Mike Leach and what he's doing in the run game, it was 4th and 4 yesterday, and they just ran inside zone, basically. Draw, whatever you want to call it, and got it. I mean, Mike Leach is starting to use the run a little bit more, and it's making them that much more dangerous because typically Mississippi State uses a bunch of modified runs, right? Swing passes, crossers, spots, angles to the backs, things like that to try and get them in 2nd and 6, where some teams will line up and run the counter or the power or inside zone or outside zone or lead or trucks or things like that. So they're starting to kind of diversify their portfolio. And I think you can when you have a quarterback like Will Rogers and an offensive line that's having success. And a lot of people are going to talk about how bad A&M is today. And look, I agree with you. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I want to make sure that we give Mississippi State credit, a team that dropped. When it was scoreless in the second quarter, they scored 14. When A&M won the third quarter by 3, Tennessee, maybe there's a little bit of momentum and scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. What did Mississippi State do? They scored 21. Mississippi State had an answer every time A&M did something. And that shows you a team that's organized. That shows you a team that's confident. And that shows you a team that has a sense of urgency. And Mike Leach is kind of the unknown a little bit. So I want to make sure before we get over here and steamroll Texas A&M that we make sure and give Mississippi State credit. But what I talked about yesterday with A&M is a lot of people are going to point to the offense. And that's a big part. And it's the easiest part to point to. That's weird to say. Say that 3 times fast. But A&M, to me, on all three phases throughout the season, 2 of those 3 phases in pretty much every game have not been working in continuity with that other phase. The best teams play what? Complementary football, offense, defense, special teams. Everybody's doing their part. Sometimes we're all cooking. Sometimes 2 out of 3 is cooking, and it makes up for the other one. But you cannot consistently have 2 out of 3 phases not playing well. The defense, while they did shut them out in the first quarter, if you look, teams are playing on the other side of A&M's line of scrimmage on defense. You saw that with App State. You've seen that kind of continuously throughout the season, which has surprised a lot of people, including myself, considering how good we thought A&M's front 7 is going to be. And they have some young guys that are going to come along. But if you look at some of the big plays that they're giving up, and I get it sometimes as a defensive guy, I've been on those teams where the offense is bad. I know they're bad. The players on defense know they're bad. And over time, it just kind of wears you down and wears you down and wears you down. And eventually that dam breaks. But it seems like in the clutch moments, outside of last week against Arkansas, when KJ Jefferson attempted to jump from like the 8-yard line, A&M's defense has not been able to step up and get stops when they have to have it. Then you look at special teams. I mean, again, you have errors there. It's small things. The penalties that they're getting are controllable penalties. But then on offense, you look at the offensive line continuing to struggle. Max Johnson was getting murdered yesterday.
Yeah.
Absolutely murdered. He was off his launch point the whole time. The run game was great with the A-chain against Arkansas because he busted a big one and they supplemented on the other side. But A&M has yet to play a game where the special teams, defense, and offense all played good at the same time. And if I'm an A&M fan, it's not just the lack of explosive plays that worry me on offense. It's the lack of the ability to play complementary football in year 5. And you know what? At this point, I almost think, and Jimbo's talked about it a little bit, I think Jimbo needs to go get an OC. I think he needs to go get an OC. I think he needs to kind of get more in that CEO role because I know they don't have a vertical threat, really. I know Aniyah Smith got hurt last week, and I know it's tough to call plays when teams know that you can't burn them deep. But at some point, you have got to find a way to find some explosive plays. And I'm not saying going out there and running trick plays, and I'm not saying going out there and turning your offense into an air raid offense, but you need a new look. You know how you need to bring John Taffer in. You know how they do in Bar Rescue? They're like, it's not going good. Yeah. The Friar's got something growing out of it. And John Taffer, what does he do? He goes in there, he looks around, he starts screaming at everybody, and then he figures it out. All right. So they need John Taffer to come in They need
I thought Jimbo was the John Tapper.
No. Jimbo owns that. No,
money.
Jimbo owns the sports bar, man. Jimbo owns the sports bar. John Tapper's going to come in. Hey, let's get a new cash register, technological system in here that's going to make things easier. Brittany, stop being lazy as hell. Make some drinks. Somebody needs to get in there and just start yelling at everybody. That's the truth. What do y'all think?
Gordon Ramsay, this situation. Huh?
That's exactly right.
Look, watching Texas A&M on offense kind of reminded me of watching the Bengals on offense the first couple weeks. Constant penetration through the offensive line up the middle. Yesterday, we saw Max Johnson hold on to the ball a little bit too long and make some bad decisions, which is a little bit uncharacteristic for him. Haynes King came in and sort of exacerbated that problem. But I love what you said, Jake. All hats off to Mississippi State, man. The two programs I undervalued the most in the preseason were Mississippi State and Kansas State, and watching Mike Leach run the football rather than just throw the ball all around. It is so much fun to watch because it opens up more of the air raid offense. I mean, Will Rogers, who I think will be the best pro in his class, still threw for 329, 3 TDs, but they averaged 6 yards a carry on the ground, had 145 yards rushing. This Mississippi State team is for real. Now, Mike Leach has that ability to always beat some people he's not supposed to, and then lose to some teams that he's not supposed to. But I really love this Mississippi State team right now. And like I said, with Texas A&M comes to Tuscaloosa next week. We're not sure about Bryce Young. Look, don't count out the Aggies to be able to keep that one close in some way, especially if Alabama's without their quarterback. But it's not looking good in College Station, boys.
No. If they're going to struggle on the offensive line, it's going to be a problem. Remember, if you do donate, we're going to make sure and ask your question. Blaine, go ahead real quick, and then we're going to rapid fire through the rest of the SEC.
Well, the thing is with Mike Leach and running the ball, this didn't start this year. This started the back half of last year.
That's a good point. You
saw Mike started running the ball more because sooner or later you have to. Like, the air raid's great, but you have to at least make them somewhat respect this. And A&M fans, I'm not going to sit here and rag on A&M fans because I'm not surprised. All right, before the year started, y'all are always the most overhyped team walking into the year. It's y'all in Texas. It's y'all state. I don't know what it is, but y'all are always overhyped. It's 8-4, baby. That's what it's going to be. It's Jimbo to a T, and he can bring in an OC. That's fine. I think he needs to because the offense just looks stagnant at best. I watched Max Johnson. I just felt bad. It was almost like a horror movie watching him try to move around in the pocket and just get absolutely
You need to smile more.
Yeah, it was just bad. But Mississippi State is a complete team, right? They're a complete team. They're fun to watch. And, man, I'm a huge Will Rogers advocate. That kid is nasty to a T. I mean, that kid can do everything. And I agree with David. He's the most NFL ready. But I'm not surprised by this. It's not like Mississippi State shouldn't have beat A&M. Mississippi State's a better team than A&M.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. We got a $5 donation from Killadrone. LSU versus Auburn was like watching two puppies beat each other with pool noodles. Neither team has that dog in them. Yeah, look, but Blaine made a good point. It looked like two high school teams on offense playing each other with an athletic quarterback. Just let's run around and try and figure it out. All right, moving on. Georgia, Missouri. Missouri, we talk about getting off the mat. We asked, would Missouri be able to get off the mat after what happened at Auburn last week? Georgia, for the second week in a row, looked a little inept early on offense. Missouri is a tough place to play. It's one of those games where, of course, you want to go look good. You're the number one team in the country. You're coming off a game against Kent State, where it's a little bit ugly. Obviously, you win that game by 17 points. But that's when you just got to go win. I'm not off the Georgia bandwagon by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes there is games like this. That's how it works out. You had to go win it. And I do want to give credit to Eli Drinkowitz and his staff for getting those guys to get off the mat.
Go ahead, Blaine.
I feel so bad for Eli Drinkowitz these last couple of weeks. I mean, I just feel bad. You go back to the Auburn loss and you lose this game. You beat Georgia for 4 quarters, and the last 3 minutes of the game, you lose it. But Eli Drinkowitz, you got to feel good about the team you have. I mean, you're young right now, especially a quarterback with Brady, but you're only going to get better. But I was just really surprised by Stetson Bennett in this game. I mean, you're 24 of 43. I thought the Missouri defense did well of getting in the passing lanes. Stetson's not a huge guy, right? Well, we know that. So if you get someone getting in the passing lanes, alter his throw a little bit, that affects the game. And you saw that. And the one thing I thought Missouri was doing really well with the stretch game was it was working. They were getting lateral quick and getting upfield. That zone game was working against Georgia. And you're going to see teams in the future do this against Georgia, but I will not hop off this Georgia bandwagon. I think they'll be fine. I think, if anything, this helps them these last couple of weeks. but their defense really has to tighten it up for me if they're going to make that run. I do think their offense is good, but you can only get Brock Bowers the ball so many times, and Stetson got to clean it up. But it's good you went through a game like this where really nothing was working on offense, defense, special team as well, and still came out with the win at the end of the day. Because, guys, I tell you, no matter what it is, you're still in the SEC. All right, week in, week out, it might be Missouri, it might be LSU, it might be Kentucky. Nothing's a walk in the park over here. So it's a good win by Georgia, and I'm definitely not jumping off the bandwagon.
Cone, I think Georgia better be fortunate they have Tennessee at home this year.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I love that. That's what we're talking about with Chris Doering. I love that we're even having the conversation that could be a football game, right? And that's what I was going to say about this. It just speaks to the health of college football right now. What I was most impressed with Missouri was their courage to dial up pressure and play man behind it against Georgia throughout that game. They were playing man. They were getting to Stetson Bennett, and I think that's what I was talking about with Arkansas. Like that's what I would have done late in the game with the backup quarterback at Alabama. But Jake, what do you always say? Time plus talent equals victory, right? And Georgia just had enough time to be able to come back. And I think Blaine, to your point, Kirby Smart said it best in the post-game interview. It's hard to win in the SEC, and you can say that about a lot of conferences from top to bottom. It's hard to go on the road and beat football teams, and I think this speaks to the health of college football right now.
I agree. I love it. I love, it being mixed up and having some sort of parity and not just knowing, all right, Georgia's going to win by 50. Or Alabama's going to win by 50. Ole Miss, Kentucky. Guys, this game played out exactly like we said it would. It literally played out. What did we say about Kentucky? Not that they're a bad team, but it was a little bit of fool's gold, right? How does Kentucky have to win? Like A&M, similar to A&M, the lack of explosive plays, even getting Chris Rodriguez back. Kentucky's very methodical on offense. They have to beat you being methodical on offense, making you go 10 to 12 plays, 8 to 10 plays per drive on defense, and make a big play on special teams. And what did they do to survive in this game? You had 2 huge kickoff returns. That kept Kentucky in the game. When they went down 2 scores, that next kickoff return, he returned it all the way, I believe, to the 10-yard line. They're able to punch it in there. Hey, we got a game. Now, you did miss 2 extra points. This is what you can't do if you're Kentucky. You're not good enough to miss 2 extra points and give them a safety. All right. And you missed another field goal. But let's just say the easiest parts, right? Getting rid of the ball and not getting tackled in the end zone, knowing where you're at. Making the easiest field goal there is to make, which is an extra point. You missed 2 extra points and gave them a safety. That's 4 points. You lost by 3 points. You gave them the game a little bit. Now, do you want to give Ole Miss credit, especially early? Quinshad Judkins, the way they were running the ball, Ole Miss was very balanced on offense. Jackson Dart does struggle to see linebackers in pass coverage. Has anybody else noticed that? Even if you go back and watch the games before, there were a couple picks Kentucky should have had because Jackson Dart just wasn't seeing the linebackers. Look, you have to know where the safeties are. You have to know if it's too high. You have to know if they rolled down and if there's any movement post-snap. But you, for damn sure, better know where the linebackers are because those are the windows you're going to be throwing through a lot more than throwing it over the safeties or throwing it deep. So it's a nice win for Ole Miss. Do I think Ole Miss is an elite team? No. Do I think they just kind of outweighted Kentucky like Kentucky outweighted other people? Yes. So while it wasn't a battle of 2 unbelievable teams, it was a hell of a game, and Kentucky isn't good enough to overcome mistakes like that, especially on the road.
We talk about special teams being a complete category a lot, Jake, and you were a special teams coordinator. We say like either a team played well or they played poorly on special teams, but Kentucky's return game was as good as I've ever seen. I mean, that kept them in the game just like you were saying, and I've never seen a team be so bad in the kicking game. You're talking about the missed extra points, but then the missed field goal and then the fumble on the field goal attempt as well. I mean, that's what did them in right there. But you saw what Chris Rodriguez was able to do, his return for Kentucky, because his ability to turn, like I said, 2-yard losses into 2-yard gains or 2-yard gains into 6-yard gains was huge for Kentucky. And then them putting that odd front over Ole Miss in the center, I think was huge too, because you saw how many low snaps Ole Miss had. But even with all that combined, Ole Miss found a way to win at home with a packed stadium. Lane, there you go. So a big win for Ole Miss.
Definitely. Blaine, real quick.
Let me go ahead and say this. First of all, Berrien Brown for Kentucky is a problem. All right, this kid's a true freshman. Like this dude's already an NFL player. If I'm Kentucky, I'm getting this cat the ball as many times as I can. And Will Levis is not a top 10 pick in the NFL.
I don't think so. I mean, you have people saying he's the number 1 pick.
I don't think he's a top. I mean, I was kind of going through in my head. I mean, I don't know if he's a top 5 quarterback right now in college football. I mean, there's some guys. I put Will Rogers in front of him. I put Sam Hartman in front of him. I put Bryce Young in front of him. I'm sure there's 2 other guys you can find to put in front of him. This kid's not a top 10 pick. I mean, this offense, Chris Rodriguez came in. You saw what Chris Rodriguez does. He takes plays that are supposed to go for 4 yards. It breaks a couple tackles, goes for 10. That's the difference a running back can make in your offense, especially Kentucky. But, at the end of the day, the game was on Will Levis's shoulder, and he couldn't come through with it. But great win for Ole Miss. I was really impressed with the Ole Miss running game. Zach Evans, the transfer from
running
TCU,
game.
Yeah,
is
he's
an
nasty.
extremely good back. So I feel like Ole Miss later in the season are going to win a couple games they shouldn't, and Ole Miss could be a problem. But that defense played well, but I don't think they're still good enough to hold with the best.
Yep. All right, so let's go to the Big 12. You got to start with Oklahoma and TCU. Now, TCU seems to do this at least to somebody every year. Like they just play absolutely out of their mind. But I want to make the point that I made about Arkansas. The lack of team speed on Oklahoma's defense is starting to catch up with them, especially as you go through the year and guys are a little more beat up. You're not as crisp as you are running guys down. They were hitting home runs from everywhere yesterday. Guys, at the end of the first half, they had 41 points, which you don't have to be a mathematician to realize that's over a point a minute. Really think about that. TCU was scoring a point a minute in the first half. Dylan Gabriel's really nice. They have some pieces on that offense. They're not good enough to overcome that on the road. Is TCU an absolutely elite, stellar team to me? No. Should we start talking about maybe Sonny Dykes being the coach of the year? Yes. You took your team. You were at SMU. You beat SMU with the team you're at now. You embarrassed Oklahoma at home. Now, TCU, while they do this once a year and beat the hell out of somebody they shouldn't, they also go and play terrible for 1 or 2 games and lose to somebody that they shouldn't. Or at least that's how it was under Gary Patterson. We'll see how it happens to Sonny Dykes. But Oklahoma's going to be the story. And we know Brent Venables is a defensive guy. I'm giving him a pass on this year in the defense because there were personnel problems. What's been Oklahoma's biggest problem, even when Lincoln Riley was there? And I'm not putting this on Lincoln Riley. It was defense. They could score points. They just couldn't stop anybody. And they couldn't stop anybody when it mattered. And the defense right now isn't very good. They're not. And it's not like you're going to get healthier as the year goes on. It looks to me like Oklahoma is going to have to start winning shootouts. That's what it looks like to me. Now, you may have 1 or 2 performances where the defensive line really steps up and kind of takes some pressure off the linebackers in the back end. But the overall team speed for Oklahoma at the linebacker position and in the secondary just isn't good enough. It isn't good enough for the Big 12. It isn't good enough for the Pac-12. It isn't good enough for the SEC. It's not good enough for high-level college football, and there's no way to fix that other than going to get guys, bringing in recruits that are able to run guys down. So everybody's going to be piling on Brent Venables because it's easy to do. And look, the way they played the last couple of weeks, you look at what happened against Kansas State, where the defense got absolutely torched by Adrian Martinez and those guys, and then they make Max Dugan look like the Maxwell Award winner. There's some problems on defense in Oklahoma, but I still think we need to be a little bit patient here with Brent Venables before people start comparing him to Manny Diaz, which I think is a horrible comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, if you told me 6 weeks ago at the beginning of the season that Oklahoma is going to lose to Kansas State and to TCU, like I wouldn't be surprised at that. Kansas State's won 4 of the last 6 in Norman. TCU always figures out a way to do this. You have a first-year head coach. Lincoln Riley took a lot of players from the transfer portal. You got Dylan Gabriel coming in who was banged up. But what's surprising to me is 41 points to Kansas State, 55 points to TCU after the way they started. I mean, Oklahoma was legitimately looking good. I think when all of us had them in that 5, 6, 7 range in the rankings, that was a legitimate ranking. So to lose like that after you go on the road and just absolutely obliterate a Nebraska team on the road who was trying their best to circle the wagons for Scott Frost, that's what surprises me so much. So my question to you guys is, what now for Oklahoma? Are we going to see some more of this throughout the season, or is this a situation where they can win out? They can win out in these 2 losses. 5 weeks from now, we're talking about like, hey, they had a little midseason slump, but now look at them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Go ahead, Juan.
There's not magical players walking in that locker room.
That's exactly
that
right.
Team. I mean, you have the personnel who you have, and you go back. I mean, they lost a lot in the portal, guys. A lot of players to the portal, but you got to trust Coach Venables and what he does and the mindset it's going to take a couple years, especially to get that program where it needs to be. I'm not huge on Oklahoma, but I mean, this TCU team really could turn out to be a problem, guys. I mean, you got Oklahoma, you go to Kansas next week, then you got Oklahoma State at home, then Kansas State at home, and the back half of your schedule gets a little bit lighter. I mean, you go to Texas and Baylor. But, I mean, I want to know how far this TCU team can go, because if you look, it's kind of funny. Y'all know who the offensive coordinator is for this TCU team.
Tell him, Blaine.
Yeah, it's Lincoln Riley's little brother.
Yeah,
Garrett. So I mean, well, I want to see. I mean, I'm sure which goes from brother to brother when it comes to calling plays. So this TCU team could turn into the problem because their quarterback they have is for real.
No, without a doubt. You look at Oklahoma State, too, going and getting a huge win against Baylor. Guys, I was shocked there was this many points. This is a game I was not touching on from a betting standpoint. Baylor drops to 3-2, 1-1 in the Big 12. Oklahoma State's 4-0, now 1-0 in the Big 12. You got to give credit to Spencer Sanders and the defense there at the end that stepped up and was able to force a couple turnovers by Blake Shapen, to win the game. Is Oklahoma State the best team in the Big 12? I don't know. I looking at Texas, with the way they played yesterday, I know it hasn't been absolutely gorgeous, but Quinn Ewers as well. And look, I don't think West Virginia is any good, so I don't want to put too much stock into that. But man, I look at this Oklahoma State team. You looked a little more explosive yesterday. Spencer Sanders' running ability just scares the hell out of you, which creates separation in the pass game. And I thought this was going to be an old school, let's just run into each other as hard as we possibly can for 4 quarters and see who can be the first to score 17 points. But there were points off the rip. I mean, Oklahoma State, the turning point in that game was when Oklahoma State, because the first half, Baylor didn't play great. It's the first half. You go in there, get everybody together, let's talk about it. And then Oklahoma State comes out and runs the opening kickoff of the second half back for a touchdown. That was a huge play because now Baylor's chasing. And the way Dave Aranda and that offense wants to work is not to chase. I know no offense wants to chase, but other teams can chase you down a lot quicker than teams who want to do what Baylor does. Baylor wants to get ahead of you. They want to run the ball, play action, intermediate to short passing game, run the clock, and smother you to death like a python when it comes down to being able to catch you and how they act with a lead or when they're catching up. So you got to give Mike Gundy credit. Oklahoma State right now setting themselves up to have a chance to have a really big year again. Remember last year, kind of blew it at the end, had a chance to make the playoff, and in that Big 12 championship game, they ended up losing to Baylor. But Blaine, what do you think about Oklahoma State? I know you've been high on them. I think you picked them to win the Big 12, correct?
No, I did.
Oh, Cone. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Blaine.
Yeah, Cone did.
Yeah, Blaine, you picked Texas.
I got so many wrong. I have to make sure I get this one right. Go ahead, Blaine.
Well, I did pick Oklahoma State money line, one of my show bets to win this.
You did, yep.
To win this game. Man, I'm a big Spencer Sanders guy. I like the way their offense works with Gundy. And just his running ability, and he's a decent above average thrower. And this defensive line has some talent on it. And I know they haven't looked great throughout the year, but they know their identity on both sides of the ball. Special teams is good, but Spencer Sanders was a difference in this game for me. I mean, the kid's a stud. I know Shapen played well, threw over 300 yards. But the thing about me is Oklahoma State had about 15 more rushing attempts. They kind of did better on the ground, and that's the Oklahoma State team. They can stop you running the ball, and they can run the ball a little bit to open up what Spencer Sanders does, and that's the RPO game, getting outside the pocket. And it fell to what Oklahoma State wanted to do. These are two almost equally matched teams right now, but the difference for me was Spencer Sanders at quarterback.
Without a doubt.
No doubt. That Oklahoma TCU game was sort of the quintessential Big 12 game over the past decade, right? Like score a lot of points, not play much defense. That's why last season when we were looking at Oklahoma State and Baylor have so much success in the conference with their defenses and then appear against each other in the conference championship, we were saying, man, is there like a passing of the torch in terms of ideology when it comes to defensive play in the Big 12? So then to see them match up here and score over 60 points combined was a little bit surprising, but I do think it speaks to the quarterbacks in this game. Spencer Sanders is one of the reasons that I had Oklahoma State winning this conference preseason. But I'll tell you this, though. Blake Shapen certainly climbed up my big board in terms of quarterbacks at the collegiate level right now. Yeah. I think he spins the ball very well. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for him. But Oklahoma State's looking good here as we move forward for the rest of conference play.
Yeah, it's going to get interesting. Another team that's looking good, Kansas, takes care of Iowa State at home. Scored 14 points in the second quarter, and that's all it took. The defense gives up 11 points. Now, look, I know Iowa State isn't exactly the Golden State Warriors when it comes to offense, but it's still, I mean, Kansas 5-0, 2-0 in the Big 12, fellas. 5-0, 2-0 in the Big. I'm betting them every week. I'm betting that, and whatever Iowa's under is, I am betting it every single week. But what Kansas is showing you, and I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, Kansas is winning in multiple ways, guys. Like they're winning shootouts, they're winning blowouts, they're winning defensive slugfests. I mean, at some point, I've seen a lot of things in college football. And Blaine, if you don't mind, pull up Kansas' schedule real quick. This Kansas team is legitimate. Let's go through the rest of their schedule real quick.
Okay, you got TCU at home this weekend.
Very winnable.
You go to Oklahoma.
We'll see.
You go to Baylor.
Ooh.
You got Oklahoma State at home.
Ooh.
You go to Texas Tech, which is not a walk in the park.
No, they beat Texas.
You got Texas at home, and then you go to Kansas State. That sucks.
That's a stretch, boys. That's a stretch.
Yeah, the back end of that schedule. Look, I'm all about a good back end, but that's not it. Texas handles West Virginia. You're up 35-7 going into the fourth quarter. West Virginia scores 13 points in garbage time. Neil Brown's in trouble. He's in trouble. They're 2-3, 0-2 in the Big 12. There was a little bit of heat on him. He's the guy I think we're going to put on the hot seat this week, along with a couple others. You know, I know they're not going to fire Matt Campbell at Iowa State, but they continue to be super duper mid. But Texas, you know, I thought they operated pretty well, Blaine. This was a game that they just jumped them. They absolutely jumped them from the start. JT Daniels, he was 29 of 48 for 253 and a touchdown for, you know, West Virginia, which wasn't bad. But Hudson Card, man, 21 of 27, 303 yards, averaged over 11 yards per throw that was caught, and 3 touchdowns, had a QBR of almost 90. Bijan Robinson goes for over 100. It was just a good day at the ballpark. Just a really good day at the ballpark for Texas and what they were able to do.
I mean, you got to be excited if you're this Texas team. I know you lost to Texas Tech, and you go watch Texas Tech play, man. They're a good football team on both sides. Hudson Card looks like he's a good player, but I still think you got to put Quinn in there when he gets healthy. It just gives you another element to that offense. I mean, you got Bijan at running back, NFL guy. Your defense is playing well. I still have Texas winning the Big 12 with Quinn in there. I feel like they can do it this year. You know, a down Oklahoma team. I mean, you really look who they're going to be going against. It's going to be Oak State. It's going to be, I mean, hell, who knows? Maybe Kansas State. So there's still room at the top, right? And you're 3-2, you're 1-1 in conference with one of those losses of being against Alabama, which was a close game. And if you go through their schedule, I can pull their schedule up right now. I mean, you got 2 Oklahoma this weekend. You have Iowa State at home. You go to Oklahoma State and to Kansas State back-to-back weeks. And you have TCU at home, Kansas at home. We go to Baylor. So it's not an easy stretch for sure. But the thing about it is, like, you have the quarterback, you have the running back. Worthy's nasty receiver. I mean, he's catching passes. He's throwing passes. He's basically the modern-day Boobie Miles. But I still believe in Texas. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't with there's room at the top. Guys, tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're right. Big 12's as fun as I've seen them, man.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's turning into a defensive conference, too. I love it. Jordog24 with a $5 donation. Remember, donations get your question asked very quickly. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel as well. He says, I know the Buckeyes made a lot of mistakes, but go Bucks. Right, Cone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they look good. They look like world beaters, man, as always.
I had the over at 58 in that game, and after Rutgers scored after that drop punt, I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to hit. Because I knew Ohio State was just going to start absolutely draining touchdowns, like 3-pointers. Once they got it kicking, they ended up winning 49-10.
Yeah,
Ohio
Baby
State
Cone had a minus 39.5. So
oh, I know. That's the worst. The hook. Captain Hook got you. They did what they had to do. I think we're still learning about Ohio State, but we know how talented they are. Kind of buzzing through the Big Ten here. Michigan, nice win at Iowa. It's hard to go into Kinnick. Jim Harbaugh never won there as a player or a coach. They go in there. They're up 20-0 going into the fourth. Iowa with a little bit of a flurry. Petrus closed his eyes and hit a few passes. But Michigan handled business. I really like Blake Corum. I like the identity of this team. I know J.J. McCarthy isn't the most elite thrower of the ball, but I think he really didn't make the big mistake yesterday. He was smart enough to realize who they're playing against. And let's be honest, Iowa's offense is nepotism in motion. That's what we're actually seeing it. It's the materialization of nepotism. They are so bad on offense. You want to talk about team speed? Right? We talked about Oklahoma's speed on defense and Arkansas and Oklahoma's lack of speed on defense. Iowa basically has but they don't have any game breakers on offense. Guys can't run away from each other. It's just, that's why you want to talk about methodical. I mean, it's on 4th and 2 with the game on the line, you run a 1-yard route. On 4th and 2, I could have got my fiance Reed could have came over there and said, that's really stupid. Let's call timeout and figure something else out. At this point, I mean, with Iowa, do you have to make a move during the year at offensive coordinator, Conan? What'd you think about Michigan quickly?
Tough when it's your son, but yeah, I thought Michigan played a really good football game, complete in all phases on the offensive side of the ball. I think you saw what Donovan Edwards adds. He was out against Maryland, and while Blake Corum is the guy, Donovan Edwards adds so much in the pass game. He had a touchdown reception. J.J. McCarthy still overthrowing wide receivers, but I think that's something that's going to get dialed in. Ronnie Bell is healthy now. Roman Wilson is just an elite receiver in the Big Ten right now. I think we still need to get him the football behind the line of scrimmage more as we did those first 3 games. But I thought Michigan played a really good football game. On the defensive side of the ball, the open field tackling was elite. That was something that I haven't really seen from a Michigan defense. I think they only missed maybe 1 open field tackle. That was very impressive. The one concern I have for Michigan, though, is there was a lot of separation by Iowa wide receivers. And Iowa had a lot of penalties on the offensive line, and Petrus missed a lot of balls. Okay. And they were still able to score a few touchdowns late. So my thing is, CJ Stroud's not missing those wide receivers. A lot of other quarterbacks aren't missing those wide receivers. So get that separation down in the secondary. But other than that, a complete game from the Wolverines.
Yeah, I would say a good win, but I'll never really base the defense of what Iowa does on offense. If you give up more than 7 points against Iowa, I just don't believe it. And that offense is anemic at best. I don't know why they still run it. Kirk Ferentz, I'm sorry, it's awesome. I know you've been there for 40 years, but please change it. I don't know how you sit there and go to the film room every week and be like, all right, let's go over ISO, let's go over counters, 90% of your plays. So it's 2022,
Damn
man.
it, Dan.
That stuff doesn't work anymore. All right. It's just not going to work. But Michigan looked good on offense. I thought McCarthy looked good. And Michigan's a complete team. They're going to get better. They're starting to see them get healthy with Edwards coming back. So Michigan's going to be a problem. It's going to be Michigan, Ohio State, guys. That's who it's going to be. We all know this. That's what it's going to come down to. It comes down to it every year. I really don't feel like Michigan has to worry about Sparty this year because they are trash on every level, especially at the quarterback position. I do know a guy who had him in their playoffs. Haha. But, I'm not surprised by this. Michigan. It's a win, guys. It's a win for Michigan. Congrats, David. It must feel good to be undefeated. I love you, but secretly hate you because you're undefeated. But, we'll see going into next weekend.
All right, so we got a question, donation here. MPA768 with a $5 donation. Does Ole Miss go 8-0 into a mid-Aggies team? Blaine, could you pull that schedule up while we kind of go through the Big Ten? Because I do. Speaking of, kind of looking around, Minnesota with a huge loss at home. You got to take your hat off to Purdue and Aiden O'Connell. Starting out, a team that we picked. Me and you, David, to win the Big Ten West. Early game, you lose to Penn State in devastating fashion. You've really blown a ton of leads. I mean, you've blown more leads than a newsman that gets drunk when he figures out some news is breaking. So to see them get the 10-point lead, lose the 10-point lead, and then beat Minnesota 10-0 in the fourth quarter, I think it shows you a little bit of the intestinal fortitude of this Purdue team. Now, Minnesota, they kept giving Purdue opportunities. They were moving the ball pretty well, but it was like they would get down close to the red zone and then disaster would happen. I mean, right before the half, you have a chance to punch in a touchdown, get some momentum and go. I believe it was right before the half. And you had a receiver wide open in the end zone. It tips off his hands and it's intercepted and you get nothing. So when I look at this Purdue team, I think you got to take your hat off to Coach Brom, getting those guys back up, that they still have a chance. But this is a tough loss for Minnesota at home. You were undefeated coming into this game. It's a game where I think you were better than they were, especially up front. Now you're 4-1, 1-1 in the Big Ten. You've lost a lot of momentum, but I do think you have to tip your cap to Purdue. But man, if you're Minnesota, it started to Minnesota kind of started to you started to feel it a little bit. And I know Michigan State's not a great team, but they went up to Michigan State and absolutely drugged them in front of their families, friends, and everyone, and looked like a team that was on a mission. I'm wondering maybe if they overlooked this Purdue team a little bit, but a tough loss for Minnesota at home.
Yeah, they shouldn't, man. They shouldn't. I mean, just when we were ready to give up on Purdue and hand the Big Ten West to Minnesota, they go and do something like this and had success on the ground, Jake. I mean, look at this. They were averaging 5.9 yards per carry was Purdue, 160 yards on 27 carries. Meanwhile, Minnesota averaged 1.8. They had 47 yards rushing.
And that's their identity. That's Minnesota's identity is I'm going to pound it, play action. Then I'm going to let Tanner Morgan, we may get in 10 personnel and move some things around, or we may kick it out to empty and get a little weird every now and then. And on third down, if you're in 3rd and long, you're probably going to get in the gun, getting 10 personnel, which is one running back, no tight ends. But I was just very surprised at Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota scored 10 points. They scored 3 in the second and 7 coming out at halftime. First quarter and fourth quarter, they were blanked. So what does that mean? Purdue set the tone early and then responded late. That, to me, shows a team that is mature. That, to me, shows a team that has not given up. And that, to me, shows a team that could get a little bit dangerous as we move into the back half of the college football season.
Well, it's amazing what Purdue record would look like if they did run the ball, especially late in games. But I have this Ole Miss schedule pulled up.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Just a big win from Kentucky. They go to the Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll see about that. Then they have Auburn at home. They go to LSU. They go to A&M. They have Bama at home. They go to Arkansas. And then they got Mississippi State at home.
Yeah, Ole Miss isn't good enough, in my opinion, to overlook anybody. But I think if we're looking at it after what we've seen from Ole Miss, who I think is a good team, I think Ole Miss is a good team that can be explosive with some of the weapons that they have. It's, can you win at LSU? Can you go down to Death Valley and win at LSU? To me, that game is going to come down to whether Ole Miss can do what Auburn did for most of the game and make Jaden Daniels beat them from the pocket. Make him step up into the pocket and not overrush him. You saw a lot of sacks because what people do is they're like, all right, well, we got to go get him because he's fast. And they overrush the passer and never work back inside. If Jaden Daniels rushes for 100 yards against Ole Miss will lose that game. If he rushes for under 100 yards against Ole Miss, they will have a great chance at the end, or they will win that game. To me, there's a ton of stats and things that matter when you look at college football. But when you have a guy like Jaden Daniels, and Blaine, you made the point earlier, that is a one read and let me fly, one read and let it bleed, I'm gone type of guy. If you're able to frustrate him after that first read, you are shutting down 75% of the passing game and 100% of the quarterback run game. Because let's be honest, Jaden Daniels, like Matt Moscona said, is their leading rusher. He's their best rusher, and we know who he is. So that's how they're going to have. Can they do it? Hell yeah, they can do it. I mean, Lane, especially for one game, Lane can put together a game plan that's witchcraft and wizardry. Will they do it is another thing, because I still think the depth on defense, they're still not there yet, even though they've made some good moves.
No, I'd agree. I would agree. I mean, this Ole Miss team, it's just – Lane's so good, guys. For calling plays, like, realistically, you got to think of the way Lane calls plays is so good. I mean, you go back to this Ole Miss-Kentucky game. Ole Miss left a lot out there, points-wise. They left a lot out there, and they're only going to get better. But I go back to this. The run game for Ole Miss is what I love the most. That's Zach Evans. That kid is nice. He's a hard runner. He's quick. And he's only going to get better through the year. And you got to think they really didn't feed Mingo as much as they should have. I mean, this guy's an NFL receiver walking around on Ole Miss, and they got him the ball 4 or 5 times. So you'll see him get the ball more, and they focus more on this running game. That'll only help Jackson Dart in the play-action game. But I'll never doubt a Lane Kiffin coach team. I promise you that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But all right, let's
shout out to Illinois too.
Yes, that's what I was about to say, Cone.
34-10 over Wisconsin, 3-1 right now.
Feel them up.
You got Iowa and Minnesota back-to-back.
Illinois and Kansas should be ranked.
Illinois and Kansas should be ranked. Syracuse should be ranked. You know, we may have the teams that should be ranked with Big Game Boomer on the show this year. All right, so let's move on. We'll go a little bit rapid fire here. Still taking your questions and donations. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, let's go to the ACC real quick, boys. Clemson, was it pretty? No. Did they win? And are they undefeated? Yes. Have they gotten by Wake Forest and NC State? Yes. That's a team that I had in my playoff. DJU didn't look like he did last week, but he wasn't terrible. I mean, he's 21 of 30, 209 yards, a touchdown, had 2 touchdowns rushing, 14 for 73. He was actually their leading rusher. DJU is finding more ways to be effective. It seems like, you know what DJU looks like to me? It's like, you know, when you're watching like the Discovery Channel, like a baby giraffe's born and like it really can't walk yet. It's like stumbling around, and then eventually it figures it out, and then it just starts running. That's what year 2 of DJU looks like. It's like last year he just like was just like a giraffe that was born. He's out there just falling over and falling down. And this year he figured out, all right, if I put this foot here and I put this foot here and I put this foot here, hoof, whatever you want to talk about, then I can go. That's what it's looked like to me. It's a nice win for Clemson. You know, I thought this game was going to be even more low scoring than it was. The difference was Clemson scored double digits in 2 quarters. NC State didn't score double digits in any quarter. And typically when that happens, you are going to lose. They held him to just a field goal in the first and the third, and just a touchdown in the second and the fourth. Clemson threw up 10 points in the second and 10 points in the fourth. It's a nice win for Dabo with a team that's still finding themselves. But Cone, what did you think about DJU's performance?
DJ Uiagalelei found ways to win 2 football games back-to-back now. I mean, that's what you want from a Clemson quarterback. I'm so disappointed in this NC State offense because, I think Devin Leary throws the prettiest ball in the country. He's a great quarterback. They just don't have the weapons. And you saw the drop passes, I think, yesterday led to a lot of their troubles. And not just the drop passes, but the miscommunications, not sitting down in a zone, misreading zone versus man coverage, things like that. But hey, Clemson, you beat the 2 biggest dogs, I think, in the ACC with on the road at Wake and now NC State at home. I know you still have Pitt. You're going to play Miami. You still have good football teams. But I think if you're a Clemson fan right now, you have to be excited about what's ahead.
Without a doubt.
Clemson, you're in the playoffs, guys. Congrats.
Yeah, good. So that's
you're
one I know that's basically in there. Knock on wood. I had him. Everybody's like,
"Oh." First of all, DJU. I mean, I know you didn't light up the scoreboard or the stat sheet, but I mean, you played how you needed to play to win a football game, and the running ability from DJU is what I mean. He had over 70+ rushing yards, guys, which is huge in a game like this. And you got to think your defense. You're without one of your best players up front. And Breesy, who was out for this game, and you still look that good. Clemson's defense is phenomenal. But you look in the rest of their schedule right now, you go to Boston College, you go to FSU, who just lost to Wake. I mean, you get a Syracuse team at home. You go to Notre Dame. That'll be a win. Sorry, Colleen Houston. It just will. You have Louisville at home. You have Miami at home. And South Carolina at home, guys. There's not a team on that schedule if I'm Clemson. Well, 1, you overlook. But 2, you're worried about, really. I mean, you're better than all these teams you're going to face on the rest of your schedule. Then you get the championship, and we'll see from there. But, I mean, Clemson right now is just walking into the playoffs.
Yeah, again, they've beaten the teams they had to beat, and NC State's not a bad team. That was a very physical game, but like I said, I was surprised at the amount of points. And you brought up Florida State and Wake. Wake goes down to Tallahassee, 10-point win, but kind of a different way. I mean, you look at the defense of Wake Forest. From the second quarter through the fourth, they gave up 12 points. 0 in the second, 6 in the third, 6 in the fourth. When you have Sam Hartman and you've got Ellison and A.T. Perry and guys like that, you're going to win 90% of those games when the defense plays like that. Was Sam Hartman just absolutely unbelievable? No, he's 22 of 34 for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a QBR at 86. But look how balanced this offense is. 234 pass and 2 touchdowns. You had a rusher that went 6 to 18 carries for $115 and a touchdown. You had your second rusher off 20 carries go for 64 yards and a touchdown. Then receiving wise, A.T. Perry was almost a 100-yard receiver. You had a guy with 45, 30, 25, 17, 17, 10. So that means you had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys having double-digit yards in receiving. Wake Forest, very balanced attack on offense. And I was surprised how easily they were able to run the ball against this Florida State team. But to me, this is one of those games, guys, where that slow mesh RPO really threw Florida State off. You have got to get to that before it gets going, because the longer that takes, whether Sam decides to give it or pull it out and throw it, is more time where they can make adjustments, do the little changes they can offensively to fit your scheme, to find the holes in places like that. And I just thought they were very, very balanced yesterday. Wake was on offense, and Florida State could not get them off the field. And Jordan Travis wasn't horrible at all. I mean, he's 23 of 35, guys, for 281 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, if you'd have told me that stat line, I'd have said Florida State won by double digits. Florida State won by double digits. But you look at the rest of it. All right. You had Ward had 13 carries for just 90 yards. So you didn't have a 100-yard rusher. Wake did. All right. You didn't have a 100-yard receiver. Wake pretty much did. A.T. Perry had 91. Pittman had 85. I know Johnny Wilson, who's an absolute monster, had 85 as well. But that's when you were trying to come back, and Wake Forest was keeping everything in front of them. So I was very impressed with the way Wake Forest won this game, coming off a very tough game against Clemson.
The slow mesh RPO defies everything I've ever been taught about football, but somehow it is effective. And I do have to say, I misspoke real quick on Clemson's schedule. They do not play Pitt, which might not be that big of a deal anyway, since our Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets found a way to beat
Jeff
Pitt
Collins
last
really
night.
the problem?
What is going on?
So.
It is the twilight zone out here, boys.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely nuts. We do got a $5 dono from our buddy Hunter Fournette. Says Jaden Daniels looked like some hot dog water last night. Look, he did. I mean, he looked like some hot dog water, but Auburn's adjustment. Yeah, I mean, look, Auburn's adjustments were exactly hot dog water. All right. Let's go to speaking of Georgia Tech, Blaine, like you said, what a crazy win over Pitt yesterday. And Pitt, I think Pitt just overlooked them, guys. I mean, I think it's a case of just overlooking. Oh, they just fired their coach. We saw Nebraska get absolutely ran through, like somebody drank some Epcac against Oklahoma after they fired their coach. But Georgia Tech got off the mat, so you do got to give them credit there. But guys, Louisville goes to a Boston College team that isn't very good. I do like Jeff Hafley, the head coach there at BC, but they're not a very good team. And now Louisville is 0-3 in the ACC. Scott Satterfield may be cooked because, guys, coming into this year, people were talking about Louisville having a chance to win the conference with Malik Cunningham and some of the weapons around him and his ability to run and so the physicality on defense. Louisville is 0-3 in the ACC. Neil Brown, Scott Satterfield, Brian Harsin, those three right there, to me, you could maybe throw Drinkwitz in there. Those four, it's Harsin, I think the goose is already cooked. But Scott Satterfield may be, I don't know if Scott Satterfield's going to make it through the season.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, but I don't know about the Eli Drinkwitz, man. I don't know. I don't know if we can put
pressure on him, Blaine.
That.
They're going to put pressure on him now.
That's on the players. All right, last week that's on the players. This week, I mean,
no, it's always on the coaches. The coach is responsible for the players. The coach is responsible for the players.
Well, if you're
that's like saying the manager's not responsible for the guy running the cash register
in the end zone and missing 20-yard field goals. Then
get better players. Get better players.
Sign better players. The running back's pretty good. You just saw him against Georgia. He did pretty good.
Yeah, but they also lost the game. But what I'm saying is you can't say, oh, it's the players when you're the coach. That's like saying, oh, it's your kid, but you're the parent.
I'm not their coach.
I'm talking about Eli Drinkwitz, Blaine. We know you're not the head coach of Missouri unless I just absolutely been like
there's nothing Eli could
in
have
Shutter
done
Island this whole time
against Georgia. I mean, there's nothing he could have done better. You can't find a shaman out there right now who could have played Georgia closer than what Eli Drinkwitz just played these guys. There's no way you fire Eli. Scott Satterfield, sure, I got a great person you can hire. Go ahead and call Brian Harsin, get him over there. He'd love to run your program into the ground. All right, so get Scott out of there. Neil Brown, that's fine. You get JT Daniels and look like absolute dog water since you got there. It's ridiculous. How do you only score like 17 against Texas? I mean, let's be honest. I understand those for sure. But Eli Drinkwitz, man, I don't know. I just feel maybe you're right, but I just feel bad because I watch the games and it's just Missouri finds ways to mess up.
Our buddy Scotty B says, "That's Crane & Co. First time in the chat, long-time dog fan." Scotty B, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you hopping in. Make sure you sub. What's behind the UGA slump? Is it totally a mental game? It just doesn't feel like a balanced team we saw through week 3. I think you're just going through a little bit of a rough patch. Look, you have good enough players. Okay, you have the formula. You have great coaches. You know that. Just won a national championship. You've got great coaches. You've got great players. It's just, it's like. This is how I think, but you know how like people that are married for like 40 years, they're like, oh, look, Thelma and Dale, they've been married for 57 years. Mm-hmm. You think all 57 of those years were great? Like every month was great? They may have had a year in there where, look, Dale man went running around, met some girl in the pickle factory or something. I don't know. But you have things like this in a season. All right. That's how it works. All right, Blaine, stop making me laugh. That's how it works. It's not always going to be clean, but you're undefeated. Like Kirby said, it's tough to go on the road and win. And sometimes you just got to get through the kind of side relationship you have with the girl at the pickle factory.
You could tell. I mean, spooky season started, guys. It started from the games yesterday. It's October. All right. Like I'm turning on the fourth quarter and Missouri's up 7 against Georgia. I'm like, what is if there's a lot of things from yesterday that I would have thought I was going to come on here and talk about today, it wasn't Missouri almost beating Georgia. Auburn blowing the lead. I don't know what I was more amazed by, Auburn scoring 17 points or Missouri almost beating Georgia.
No, it's nuts, man. I mean, look, I still think the biggest upset of the day. Number one, Eastern Michigan tried to lose to Massachusetts. Nobody's going to care about that.
Hey, UConn, baby, let's go.
I do because I had Eastern Michigan minus 15.
That's a great bet. That was a great bet, man. Massachusetts is terrible. They're terrible. I don't know how that didn't hit. I almost took that. I'm glad I didn't. But I tell you, you know why I'm stupid? Because I didn't take the under in the Memphis Temple game. I should have took the under in that game. It was like, I don't care if the under was 27. I should have taken that game. I talked myself out of it because Wyoming came through for me at home against Air Force a couple weeks ago. Yeah. That's why. Transit property never works. Stop. Get off my own lawn. I'm on my own lawn right now. All right, real quick, guys, let's hit the Pac-12. We're going to get into some NFL. We're going to do our picks. I've got mine right over here ready to kind of rock and roll. But let's go to the Pac-12 very, very quickly. Look, USC, I know Herm Edwards was fired from Arizona State, but USC still winning. Still winning. Scored double digits, first and the fourth. A little bit interesting early. Emory Jones, I got to give him a little bit of credit. I thought they fought hard, especially with that, with an interim coach there. But USC moves on to 5-0. They're 3-0 in the Pac-12. Guys, we had a question earlier in the chat. Do you think, all right, let's say Alabama and Georgia, one of those teams has one loss, the other one's undefeated. Both those guys are probably going to get in the playoff. Clemson goes undefeated, which is looking more and more like that's going to happen. In the ACC, they're going to get in the playoff. One of Ohio State or Michigan is going to get in the playoff. Penn State's still undefeated too, even though they did not look great against Northwestern after the dismantling of Auburn. Does an undefeated Big 12 team or an undefeated Pac-12 team, are they going to put them in over a one-loss SEC team? Because if Clemson goes undefeated right now, I don't see Clemson not being in. And if Ohio State or Michigan, one of them goes undefeated and wins the Big Ten championship, they're going to be in.
Yes. Yeah, you can't go undefeated in one of the Power 5 conferences and not get in the playoff. It's what's going to happen.
Well, thank goodness it's not the BCS after what they did Auburn in 2004.
I mean, Pac-12 has to be USC.
It has to be USC. USC has to go undefeated
in the Pac-12,
and I don't see that happening.
And at this point in the Big 12, I mean, you're looking at Oklahoma State,
and of course Kansas. I mean, let's put some respect on the
put respect on their name, Blaine.
Look, if Kansas goes undefeated and gets in the playoff, I'll be the biggest Kansas homer you have ever.
Oh, look, yeah, I'll be rock, chalk, Jayhawking all up and down the street.
Day.
That'd be great for college football. But no, it's a good win for USC. Caleb Williams goes for 350, 3 touchdowns and an interception, had a QBR over 90. Decent day on the ground. Travis Dye had 62 yards, did have 2 tugs. And then Williams also had a touchdown there on the ground. You did have Jordan Addison, the pickup from Pitt, go for over 100 yesterday. We know who USC is. They're very talented at the skill position. The question is going to be up front. And it's going to continue to be up front. So, all right, guys, let's do a couple more here in the Pac-12. You had Utah just totally dispatch Oregon State. That one surprised me, guys. I'm not going to lie. I was not surprised that Oregon won 45-27 against Stanford. But, man, Washington State handles business against Cal. Arizona wins by 23 against Colorado. Out of all those games, obviously the one that has to stand out is Utah beating up Oregon State, correct?
Yeah, I had Utah minus 6.5 in this game. Oregon State coming off a kind of a 4-quarter, a grudge match with USC, kind of beating up a little bit. And I still think Utah, it's the way they are coached. They're going to get better every game. Just the way they are, their defense is getting a lot better. So I thought Utah would have a lot of good things happen on offense in this game, and so it did. Oregon with a big win over Stanford. Nothing really surprised me in the Pac-12 this weekend.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same here. Again, Oregon keeps rolling as well. All right, guys. We want to get to the NFL, but first, we do want to tell you about Jeremy's Razors. Y'all know we've been doing this fantasy football thing. It's been fantastic. Your thing with Michael Knowles the other day, where you did the labor simulator, was absolutely hilarious. Tell everybody about that real quick.
Man, shout out to Michael Knowles for honoring his fantasy football bet, just like I had to do. To be honest with you, I would have rather done the labor simulator than putting on that Buckeye shirt, Blaine. But, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Michael Knowles made good on his bet, and I got to interview him while he had a labor simulator attached to his abdomen. And if you haven't seen it, go to our YouTube channel, Crane & Company, and give it a watch.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the Jeremy's Razors contest for the car, the McLaren, so you can look like Vin Diesel from Fast and the Furious driving around. Remember, it's all family, Blaine, like you say. Most of the top players still have not hit the 20 referral mark, so there's plenty of time for you to jump in the race and win it. Literally win the race in a McLaren without even hopping in it, and then you can hop in it when you get it. So go to jeremy'srazors.com/play to get your referral link. At the end of the contest on November 1st, the player who has the most points will receive their choice of either Jeremy's McLaren he drove or $250,000 in cash, or you can give it to me to put on one huge bet that we know we're going to hit. Surprise is the Iowa under.
That's one of the coolest parts about this promotion here is that you can get the McLaren or the $250,000 cash. So there's a lot of youth community leaders out there, recreation department leaders out there who are aiming to get as many people signed up for Jeremy's Razors as possible to be able to raise that cash for their rec departments and for their communities. And so this thing's going to come down to the wire. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, well, Blaine, do you think you could beat the McLaren in your Charger?
It's a Challenger, but yes.
Oh, Challenger. Sorry, my
Thing
bad.
souped up or what?
How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare
Do you hit the
ever
NOS?
say that?
Can you hit the
How do I get
NOS?
this $250,000, guys? What do I got to do?
You better start referring.
Who do I got?
You better start referring super hard, which you will. I believe in you. All right, so make sure you go to jeremy'srazors.com/play to get your unique referral link, and then you just share it. You get your referral link, and then you share it. It's unbelievably easy. Make sure you see the terms and conditions for complete details. That's Jeremy's Razors. We're always cutting up, but in a good way. Guys, let's move on here. Oh, we do got some donations.
Donations. Hold on.
Is it Sister Riggs' birthday today?
It is.
Is it?
Sister
Riggs.
OG.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. You know we love you. Appreciate you. Hunter Fournette with another $5 donation says also LOL at Jumbo Fisher. I think that's him making fun of Texas A&M. Okay, look, I think at this point they may agree with you, but no, seriously, happy birthday to our good friend, Sister Riggs. But guys, we're going to talk about college football all this week. Got a great guest list coming up. Got a former SEC coach that is now in another line of work that may or may not have coached at Auburn. I don't know. We'll see it coming on this week as the usual great college football coverage. Big Game Boomer coming on as well. But guys, let's move on to the NFL. Got some really good matchups today. Right now, we have a game going on actually in London. Let's see the score here. The Vikings are up 7-0 on the Saints with Andy Dalton.
Boys.
What did you have?
Vikings -1.5.
Ooh, nice. I think I had them as one of mine and then forgot to tweet it out before 8:30. So I'm just going to change that and pick something else. I've got my picks. But look, we know Jameis Winston's out. He's basically got fractures in his back. And they said that so nonchalantly on the broadcast a couple weeks ago. I do like the Vikings in this game. They've kind of stumbled a little bit offensively. Adam Thielen needs to give them a little bit more, which I think he will. But look, it's not Monday. So, Kirk Cousins is probably going to win the game, guys. And Kirk Cousins isn't mid. So there.
Kirk Cousins is mid. I'm so glad
mid.
I subbed Alvin Kamara out. I did not know there's a game going on in London. Whew,
started early,
guys.
Started super early.
How do you guys feel about NFL games happening in London overseas?
I mean,
I hate it.
Look, I don't mind. I don't mind it in the NFL. I've got what I dislike more is when college football teams play huge neutral site games at the beginning of the season. I can't stand that. Neutral site games are for bowl games. NFL, professional league, totally different kind of world that they're operating in. Play in London, play in Germany, hell, play on Venus. I don't care. But in college, let's play home and homes. Let's do that, right? Let's do that. So
play NFL games in America. It's the National Football League. All right,
yes,
our nation. You want to play overseas? Schedule something in the off season. Vikings Saints can play in the off season. Let's get a game together. Let's go over to London. Let's try and grow the sport. But in season, here in America, what do you think?
Yeah, stop doing it. Stop.
Well,
I just find it either.
I just find it unbelievably ironic that the Vikings are going overseas to play the Saints. That's just like every historical book that ever happened of all times. Vikings literally would go and pillage people, different religion and stuff. You're going to start, bowing to Odin, whatever, that big raven or whatever. But there's some really good matchups today. One that kind of stands out to me, guys, Blaine, I know this is going to hurt your feelings a little bit, is the Lions without Swift, without Amon-Ra St. Brown, and without TJ Hawkinson at tight end. The Seahawks coming in. Where are they going to find their offense, Blaine?
I don't know. It's definitely, I took the under in this game. I'm going to take it for sure. It's definitely not DeAndre Swift. You go back 2 weeks ago, he's supposed to get a heavier carry load. And, it's kind of tweaked up the week before that. He ends up getting 7 carries. Great. I enjoy when you lie to everybody, especially on the fantasy team. But, I don't know. You got all your players out. I'm sure Williams, the backup running back, will do well. But I don't know where Jared Goff is going to go in this game. But if you are the Lions, you are glad this is happening against the Seahawks. All right, you can't pick another better team really to happen to in the NFL where all your players are hurt. But, I like the under in this game. I believe it's at 40-something. I'll go when we go over our bets, but I do like the under in this game.
47.5.
Yep.
Man, I may alternate line that one.
Yeah, disappointing for the Lions because the Lions' offense has been fun to watch. I repeat, the Detroit Lions' offense has been fun to watch. So it's disappointing to see all those guys out.
And guys, you got to remember who's not there right now in that offense. It's Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
J-Mo. Yep.
J-Mo's not even out there yet. So
the future's bright for Detroit.
Hutchinson's looking good too.
Yeah, he really is, and that was kind of a cool story, him staying there, obviously in Michigan at Detroit. Another game, guys, that I think is going to be unbelievably physical and high scoring is the Eagles and the Jags. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites, undefeated so far. Jalen Hurts has looked phenomenal, Blaine. I know he's your fantasy quarterback, but the Jaguars have looked competent. Trevor Lawrence throwing on the run is absolutely deadly. You look at the weapons. I mean, James Robinson's a great ad, for your fantasy team. He's doing a really, really good job at running back, but, playing off ETN. But they have some pieces, man. And it looks like the Jaguars, they believe they're supposed to win, which I don't think has been the case. They'd find ways to lose games at the end. You look at what Doug Peterson, a calming voice. I know you really like that higher cone when they made it, but the Jaguars are formidable and may mess around and win their division.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And I'm taking the over in this game. Actually,
Nice.
Two very balanced teams. Look, good on offense, good on defense. I could see the under hitting, but Doug Peterson going back to Philly on the road. Trevor Lawrence dialing it up. Good defense. So I don't know. This one's going to be interesting to me.
Yeah, I think
it
might
is
be tight. I'm getting Jaguars at plus 10.5 in this game. It's hard to beat a team
like it,
but by more than 2 possessions, especially a Jaguars team that everyone's starting to believe in. I mean, Jonathan Allen on defense, problem. Travon Walker, problem. I mean, you go to that offense. I had to pick up James Robinson this week because both my running backs are hurt in fantasy. And I know the Eagles are really good up front with Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, N'Kobe Dean. You get Slade Jr. in the secondary. I mean, the Eagles are a complete team on both sides of the ball, the special teams well. It's in the NFL. So I can't wait to watch both these defensive play and the quarterback play from this game. This might be the funnest game on the slate this weekend.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Do either one of you
Buffalo, Baltimore? Buffalo, Baltimore, too would be great.
That's where I was going to go next. Look, I know the Bills lost last game. It's kind of a interesting deal in Miami with the heat, how crazy it was. I don't want to make excuses, but I still think the Bills are still my Super Bowl favorite. Josh Allen's still my preseason MVP favorite. I think he's going to win that. To me, this game, and when you look at it, the Bills have been pretty good against the run, and the Ravens haven't been very good at passes down the field. You get a guy like Gabe Davis, I think could have a big day. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is a guy they're going to have their eyes on, but kind of that secondary receiver, I would not be shocked to see Gabe Davis have a big day. Guys, I think this is going to be high scoring, but I do like the Ravens at plus 3.5 at home with the way Lamar's playing. And you know what? You got to think about the surroundings, right? This is what for Lamar. I'm about to prove to you why you should make me the highest paid NFL quarterback. And guess who you're going up against? The guy who a lot of people consider the best quarterback in the NFL on the best team in the NFL, and they're coming to your place. I like the Ravens plus 3.5. It's really hard for me not to take a money line. I know people will say, all right, the Bills probably aren't going to lose 2 in a row, but the way Baltimore's cooking, if that tight end connection that Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews has, and Duvernay can continue to make plays on the outside, this game could get wonky real quick for the Bills because in Baltimore, they really believe.
Yeah, and even if they do lose 2 in a row, I'm talking about Buffalo here, it's not time to panic, okay? I still think the Bills are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. They're banged up right now. I would rather see them early in the season take time to get healthy so that they can make a late push towards the end of the season. Jake, you're talking about liking the Ravens plus 3.5 right now. How about even money line plus 140? Look, you're always looking for home underdogs in the NFL. And when you can combine those two things with Baltimore being a good football team, I think that's a good place to look for some of your money there with Baltimore at home.
No, I'm with you. Blaine, your thoughts?
Well, it's funny. You look at this game; both quarterbacks are leading passers and leading rushers. So it tells you how much these guys mean to their team. I mean, you won't see that really anybody else. But I'm trying to find a name that really might surprise a lot of people. Won't stand out. Stephon Diggs is going to do his thing. Mark Andrews is going to do his thing. But what other guy's going to come up and step up on both sides of the teams? You brought up Gabe Davis, Jake, which could be that guy. I mean, you go to the Ravens. I mean, maybe the run game pops. Maybe it's
J.K. Dobbins.
Who you about to say, Blaine? You about to say J.K. Dobbins?
J.K. Dobbins looked good running the ball the other day. He looked healthy, and that's half the battle with J.K. So this game's super interesting. I wouldn't touch the spread. That's just me. You really never know these two teams. But I don't know what the over-under is, but I definitely alt the over, get a little bit, maybe if it's in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s, 45s, get it, because I do like the over in this game.
Yeah, if you have a fantasy question about who you should play, drop it in there. We're going to answer it as well. But we got a $2 donation from our buddy Emmanuel C. Emmanuel, I'm pretty sure you're the one who did the Pokemon card thing on Twitter, and it was absolutely hilarious. Absolute genius, high IQ play. We're definitely putting that in the show. So that's going to get shown in the show during the week. That's fantastic stuff. Make sure you're following us at
Over
Crane
under
Company.
is 50, by the way.
Over under is 50. I got you. So he asked, what's Russell Wilson's grade so far at Denver? I'm going D, and not for dangerous. I'm going D because you're not doing well enough for me to give you a C. And look, Denver has some weapons, guys. Yep. You've got a young offensive line that I know is a little beat up, but they're talented. I mean, you look at Sutton. I know Judy's been beat up as well, but Javonte Williams, you have the pieces. Russell's not making the throws down the field. You're not seeing those plays where Russell, when the play breaks down, scrambles and makes a big throw. It's amazing. I'm going to tell you guys, I think people kind of slept on his relationship with Tyler Lockett on the field. Tyler Lockett, when you go back, was the guy that would go. He was the Wan'Dale Robinson to Will Levis of the Seahawks for Russell Wilson. He was a fixer. And now a lot of people looked at Metcalf. Obviously, he's an absolute monster. But Tyler Lockett's made some big catches, man. He's made some big catches for Russell Wilson. And as a vertical threat, he was the guy that opened up the intermediate and the short passing game. So I'd give him a D. And, guys, I'm telling you what, one of my bets, it's a plus money bet. The Raiders are 0-3. They've got to win one. This is a big AFC West divisional matchup for them, a chance to kind of get off the mat. I like the Raiders minus 3.5, and I got that at plus, let me look at, I believe it's plus 140. I have it right here. Scanning, coming to the surface, checking for danger. I got it at plus 103. So the Raiders minus 3.5 at plus 103.
Man, I like everything you're putting down right now, man. On a scale of A to Russell Wilson's Subway commercials, then I go like C- or something. Not quite as bad as the commercials. But the biggest surprise, Jake, you hit the nail on the head. It's not like you came over to a Denver team that has no weapons. We can talk about the offensive line, but they were improved from last season. And Cortland Sutton can play football. Jerry Jeudy can play football. You have two backs in the backfield that can help you out. So I don't know what's going on right now with Russell Wilson. I don't know if he's still trying to get acclimated to a new city, but so far completely underwhelming from my perspective.
Yeah, Blaine?
D. I agree. It's a D. I mean, there's nothing really about this team that half of it's coaching, I think. I don't think the play calls have been all that great, but still Russell doesn't look the same. I feel like he will get better the more he plays with this team, but this offense has to get going because this defense is pretty damn good for the Broncos.
That is. Speaking about pretty good, Cooper Rush has been pretty good. Hashtag rush hour for the Cowboys. Do they beat the Commanders at home? I think they do, guys. You want to know why? Because I trust a lot of things. Carson Wentz isn't one of them. Now, I don't trust the Cowboys either, but I'm telling you, Cooper Rush wins this game, there's really going to be some talk. There's going to be some legitimate talk about, now, wait a minute. We're paying Dak what? We're paying him what? We're paying Cooper Rush? He can wash his clothes at the facility for free. That's what they're playing Cooper Rush, and he comes in, and they're winning every game that he plays. Is Dak, if the Cowboys win today, is Dak the problem?
I don't know about the problem, but I definitely don't think you can take out a quarterback who's won every game in another quarterback's absence, unless unless it's Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers is coming back. But it'd be very difficult to bench Cooper Rush. But it just feels like, Jake, one of those games today that the Commanders come in and scrape out a win by 4 or something like that.
And just the Cowboys find a way to blow up, Blaine?
I don't know if you find the thing about Washington, their defense up front, they're really good. They're nothing but Bama and Georgia. Like, they're really good. And I'm pretty sure Washington had a really abysmal game on offense last week. I like the Commanders in this game. I do think they win. But before we get all in this Cooper Rush thing, they beat the Giants and beat a Bengals team that wasn't playing well at all. Next week, they go to the Rams. They go to Philly the week after that. Then they got Detroit at home. So, I want to get a little bit more evidence, so we just start throwing Dak out, saying he was a problem.
No, I'm not throwing him out. I just
let him play someone worth their
question.
salt a little bit, and then we'll find out. And the thing about me is, how good is that D-line going to play for the Cowboys? Because if they keep playing like they're playing with DeMarcus Lawrence, with Michael Parsons, these guys are problems on the defensive side. You got Diggs at corner, who's playing well too. So I like Cooper Rush. I feel like he does a good thing, but I like the Commanders in this game.
All right, I'm going to go rapid fire. Blaine's a little sensitive today. I'm going to go rapid fire. I'm going to go rapid fire here, guys. Tell me who you like. Chargers at the Texans. Chargers is 6-point favorite on the road. Davis Mills.
Are they still your Super Bowl? Are you still picking them to win the Super Bowl, Jay?
I mean, it's early, dude. They're going to get their players. I mean, they're as beat up as anybody in the league. I mean, now I'm really worried that Rashawn Slater's out for the rest of the year, and Joey Bosa just ripped his groin in half and showed it to everybody. And then you have Keenan Allen, who's still beat up. So if the injuries keep going like this, they're not going to go. But if they get back and they get healthy and Justin Herbert's, like ribs link back together, then I think they'll have a shot.
Home dogs, man. Maybe take Texans with the points. What do you say?
Look, somebody may have the Texans plus 7.5 at home. Somebody may have that. All right,
is,
Cardinals.
Is Justin playing?
I believe he is. Give
me the Chargers.
Okay. Cardinals at the Panthers. Come on, Kyler. You're my fantasy quarterback. Do we think Baker makes it 2-2? Or you think Kyler's been too busy playing video games this week? Can the Cardinals go to 2-0 on the road?
This is a game. I don't even want to watch this game, to be honest. I'm like, this game right here is the yuck game of the day to me.
The yuck game. Blaine, what do you think?
Yeah, give me. Look, the beta's only out on COD right now, so the game's not fully out. It comes out in the middle of October, so give me the Cardinals.
Gotcha. All right, couple more. Biggest one to me, obviously, the Chiefs going to the Bucks. The Bucks. Speaking about beat up, I think they're getting a couple guys back. TB12, the offense really hadn't been cooking in the kitchen. Remix to ignition. The Chiefs, after playing bad against the Colts on the road, 2-1, 1-1 on the road. I think the Chiefs go down to Tampa and get a dub. I think this could be a game where the Chiefs actually end up winning by a touchdown or more, guys.
My gut says the same thing, Jake, but then again, I look at that Chiefs offense. We were talking about it a lot last week. Obviously, it's not the same without Tyreek Hill, but there's bigger problems than that. When you see Mahomes and Bieniemy sort of getting into it right before halftime on the sideline, there's something larger going on. I think it could be a situation where the Chiefs just, that offense, you got new guys in there like Juju Smith-Schuster. Maybe they explode in the second half of the season, but that Bucs defense is legitimate, and that's sort of what's been holding this team together while Tom Brady's offensive weapons have been out due to injury. So my gut tells me Chiefs on the road, but still, I think maybe that Bucs defense combined with some Tom Brady magic might figure out a way to defend the home field advantage.
Let me throw a fantasy question y'all's way real quick and tell me what you think and who you would go with. All right. So Chris Godwin's been out for a while. Chris Godwin will be back today for the Bucs for tonight's game. I either have Chris Godwin or Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is playing the Jaguars. Jalen Hurts is my quarterback. Do y'all think I should go Devontae or Chris Godwin?
Man, I like Devontae the way he's been playing. I don't know how you don't play him. I'm going Devontae Smith. Big game. Yeah. Big game for the Eagles at home against,
and they're at home.
Coach coming into town. They're going to look. Jalen Hurts, that Devontae Smith connection is coming through. By the way, the Saints have tied the game. It is 7-7 right now. The live bet on that is Vikings -3 for you degenerates at home like ourselves. All right, let's go through bets and then go through our fantasy starting lineups. Y'all good with that?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right, here's what I got today. Give me the Jacksonville Philly over 44. I've got that at -138. I think we're going to see some points in that game. Give me the Ravens +3.5 at home at -125. The Packers -7 at home against a Mac Jonesless Patriots team. I know Brian Hoyer, old Chips Ahoyer, has been there forever. Don't believe in it. They don't have a ton of weapons. I know they're still beat up, and one of their top receivers isn't playing in this game. Then Raiders -3.5. At home, I like that. I got that at +103. Then the Chiefs -1.5 on the road at the Bucks. Giants, help us God. And then the last one that I'm going to take, guys, give me the Houston Texans on the alternate line here. I've got it pulled up because I was going to do the Viking Saints, but I didn't want to throw one that was already going. Give me the Texans plus. Ooh, wow. That went down. The Texans +7.5 at -152. Those are my bets.
I like it, man. I already have the Vikings -1.5. Let's see how that one shakes out. That's at -160. I have the Jags Eagles over 46.5 at -175. Again, two good defenses, but also two good offenses. Let's see if they can score some points in that one. Blaine, I'm going to go with the Lions under at 47.5. I think you maybe have that or an alternate line of something, but that's the standard line at -110 right now. Then I'm going Jets +5 +4.5 at Pittsburgh. That's -136. Commanders +6.5 at Dallas, -190. And then the Patriots. The Patriots are going to Lambeau Field. I've got them at +10.5, -132.
Blaine, what do you got, bro?
I love that +10.5. That's a good pick. All right, this is what I got. I'm going with the Browns money line against the Falcons. I'm going to take them. That's at -110. That game's a pick 'em. Give me the under. I got it at 52.5 for the Lions Seahawks game. That is -200. Give me Jaguars +10.5. That's going in at -188. I'm going to Raiders Broncos under at 48.5. That's going in at -190. And then give me the Packers -6.5. I feel like they beat this team with no Mac Jones by a touchdown against the Patriots, and that's going off at -190.
All right, so I got Clavin this week. He's 2-1. I'm 2-1. Something's got to give. I've got Kyler Murray starting at quarterback, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones at running back, Debo Samuel also coming in your neighborhood and taking all your stuff. Jalen Waddle only got me 6 points. I know Tua got knocked out decently early in that game, so it's kind of is what it is. Travis Kelce at tight end, Cortland Sutton at wide receiver. Evan McPherson gave me a smooth 11 points, 2 for 2 field goals, hit a 50-plus yarder, was perfect on extra points. Really appreciate Evan caring about the team and wanting to play together and be a friend. And then the Packers defense. At home against the Patriots without Mac Jones, I've been flexing my defense like I'm looking in the mirror at the gym, and it's been working so far. Can we get to 3-1? Can we get to 3-1? I don't know. You don't know. But deep down, we both know.
Well, boys, I'm playing Team Morning Wire this week, and I tell you what, it's already a dogfight because I had Tua starting at quarterback. Put up 2.4 left the game, and he has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. I mean, my guys are really going to have to come out and ball. I also had Jamar Chase in that Thursday night game. He had 12.1, again, underwhelming. So, it's going to be tough to pull this one out. I still have Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb playing. I have CeeDee Lamb in the lineup right now. Kyle Pitts. I didn't give up on Kyle Pitts. I was glad not to because he had a big game last week. Get him the ball, get him involved in the game plan. We know he has the hands, especially as Drake London starts to get bracketed a little bit more. Get Kyle Pitts the ball. I have Tyler Bass kicking, and the Steelers defense. I've been flexing the defense as well, and they're playing the Jets. My question here for you boys is I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the flex like I have every week, and he's been performing. He's been doing his job, but we know they're on the road at Tampa Bay. Should I go ahead and stick Curtis Samuel in there and see what he can do? He's been putting up big points on the bench, but I haven't given him a chance. And then I also have J.K. Dobbins on the bench, but they're playing Buffalo. What do you think?
Man, I think you stick with Clyde. I mean, he's been dancing well. The Chiefs are going to have to show some semblance of a run game, but I love the way they get him the ball in this PPR league through the passing game. I tell you what, Cone, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown tonight. I'd leave him in there.
Ooh, I like the way you're talking, Jake.
I'm feeling it feels good.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
It'll pay off.
I mean, I don't feel like you could go wrong with any three of those choices right now. Only thing I'd be worried about is Dobbins, the amount of carries he's getting. Curtis Samuel's a problem in the slot for the Commanders. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you never know. You can catch a screen and go 70, like when he played against you. So I feel like you'd be good with either of those. All three of those are viable options, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early with J.K. Dobbins, but I'm not going to give up on him yet because that Ravens offense wants to run the football. He's obviously a great back. We've seen what Saquon Barkley's been able to do coming back off injury. So I'm still bullish on J.K. Dobbins going forward.
Yeah.
All right, Blaine, you and Shapiro, man.
I'm going to lose against Ben Shapiro this week, which is great.
You still got all your players to play.
Which is great. So I got 2 running backs out and a receiver out. So I picked up Khalil Herbert, who's going to start for the Bears. Montgomery's out. And I picked up James Robinson on the waiver wire, I believe, last week.
I like that.
But he had Joe Mixon, who ended with 18. He had T. Higgins, who ended with 25.
Dalvin only has 5.5 through
Dalvin
a half.
Cook has 5.5 right now. So we'll see as long as he doesn't get in the end zone. But, we're going to have to come out and ball. I have the Cowboys as my defense, Daniel Carlson, Legatron, my kicker, Michael Pittman. Colts receiver Darren Waller for my tight end. Going through Chris Godwin or Devontae Smith right now. I wonder how much he has Mike Evans, so I could hurt him if I play Chris Godwin and Mike Evans doesn't have the best game. Cooper Kupp, the walking 30-piece, and Jalen Hurts at quarterback. So we'll see, boys.
Yeah, I saw a tweet the other day that I can't say on the show about it had to do with Cooper Kupp and Jeffrey Dahmer, but I almost wrecked the car that I was laughing so hard. If you find that, you'll definitely know what it is, but it is the truest thing ever of all time. But speaking about true, this is the best sports show you're going to find, guys. Got a great week planned for you. Some big-time guests. We got Team Knowles playing Team Walsh as well in fantasy. Team Nostradamus, at least he thought so after week 1. We'll see. Against Team Walsh, who I really want to lose, so he has to go to the WNBA game wearing a Equal Pay is the Way shirt.
Yes.
And that is going to be absolutely hilarious. So, again, you can find that. I'm going to tweet out the landing page for where you can keep up with the standings, who's beating who don't even care anymore. That's a song, country song, by the way. So you can check that out. I'll make sure and tweet that out tomorrow. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel on YouTube, and go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. It's at Crane Company. Really easy. We have our individual accounts as well. And go to thedailywire.com, Daily Wire Plus. Become a member. Subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review. Anything you can do. We appreciate it. We're going to catch you guys this week. Cone, Blaine, parting thoughts.
Nah, man, I'm pumped for today's slate of games.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready for Red Zone.
What sub are you getting today, Blaine?
It's Jersey Mike's. It's every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Every Sunday.
Are you not coming to the shower, Blaine?
No, I'll be there. I'll be there at 1 o'clock. I might
All right,
not. I'm not. Look, I don't know what to wear. All right.
Just look. Here's what it is. It's what did Reed say? It's golfing attire is fine. Casual cocktail, I think is what it was.
I don't know what.
Look, apparently this place we're having the shower is
what most people wear playing golf. Not you.
Yeah.
I mean, do I show up in my black and red Tiger, like a Sunday Tiger? Like,
look, you can show up Sunday Tiger. It's Sunday, okay?
Is black pants okay?
Yes. Come on, this isn't Iran, dude. Like, you can wear what color pants you want. Just make it like nice.
Yeah, someone's like, you don't wear black to wedding stuff. I'm like, well, I hate you, so whatever.
Darby Lou says, wear a button down and nice pants, Blaine.
Yes, let's do that. You look beautiful. You look glorious. All right, happy birthday, Sister Riggs. Appreciate you guys. Like I said, make sure you subscribe. We'll catch you tomorrow in the morning on Earth with other human beings at 7:30 Eastern. Make sure you check us out. Big week. Thank you guys again. We'll holler at y'all.